You actually can't read a book. You can't take a course. You can't go get involved in a summer-long seminar on the people work. That comes directly from inside each and every one of us.
I'm I feel very honored and humbled, really, to introduce to you today Melissa Schaub, who is moving from her current role as elementary principal to director of learning in her school at the International School of Lagos in Nigeria. She has served in leadership and teaching roles in international schools in many countries, in Mexico, in Venezuela, that's where she and I met, in Romania, and in Russia. She's been working with us in the PTC, both the PTC and the TTC, for many years, and she asked me to say proudly, so thank you for that, Melissa. She has taught both our TTC assessment course as well as our Principals Training Center, our PTC assessment leadership course. We're eager for your pearl, Melissa.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good morning. Good morning and good afternoon. Good evening for some of you. I'm just going to get us started here in terms of the presentation piece. And can you just give me a thumbs up if everybody can see? Let me get over here. Yeah, great, perfect. Well, I have to say that it's my privilege and it's my honor to be able to bring a pearl forward to all of you. PTC, I started PTC in 1997. And I just feel like since that moment in time when I first started up until this very point, the learning has just been amazing. The leadership learning never stops. And so today, as I am able to share a few things about my journey with you, a few I would call wisdom, pearls of wisdom, iridescent pearls. It all comes from that specific sets of experiences, and more importantly, the people who have been on my pathway. So the leaders that I have learned from, those that have been my models, those who have represented really important, sometimes difficult lessons and learning opportunities. When I think about the very first pearl that I got to experience, it was actually shared by Chris Bowman. And many of you may have already taken a class with Chris, or you know him from a different time. He was a last director in Luxembourg. I remember so specifically that his pearl kind of steered away from theory, and it steered away from the models and the protocols that are so essential to our leadership. But it went straight to this human element, and he talked about the power of visualization. And I remember sitting there, a new leader, just being amazed that we would kind of talk about the human piece. And so as I thought about today, it was really my greatest learning has come from the work that I've done with people. And it was the realization that we can learn and learn and learn, but at the end of the day, there is that something inside of each of us as leaders that honors the people for whom we work. And so that's really where we're going to go today in terms of what I'm hoping to share with you. I want to set it up, though, that as principals and as school leaders, we're lucky because we have a very clear set of standards, and the PTC has made those very accessible to all of us. And the courses that are offered actually sit on these standards and allow us to seek these as our set of what's. So being accountable for learning, the role that we play in human resources, developing curriculum instruction as instructional leaders, being organizational leaders, and that notion of culture and climate, and then the professional accountability that we have to ensure that our kids, no matter where we are at the center of our work and learning at the maximum potential that they have. But one of the greatest learnings as I have tried to put in place every skill and every strategy that I've ever learned, every protocol, my own passion for curriculum, as I've done that across the last 16 years of being a leader, one of the things that I've realized is that all of those things can be put in place, but the true movement and the true rhythm of leadership comes with the people work. And so the Pearl today, which I have set up because there are a few pieces, but I've set up around this notion of the bracelet, because when I wear my own bracelet, it reminds me every day of what I need to be thinking about as a leader. And it's about the people work, because that's really that's our masterpiece. And so a few things that I've learned along the way, and again, these come from people who have been very, very important to me in my own growth. They're the people I look to as my models, and also the people who have taught me what I really want to focus on as a leader in order to be my best leader self. And the first one is all about presence. And so this notion that presence grows connection. That was a lesson that I learned, actually, I would say through stumbling. Because as much as I love people and I love relationship, I can really get excited about projects. And I have found in all of my positions, whatever leadership role that I'm in, I can dive right into projects, not only one, but multiple projects. I love multiple projects. And what that means sometimes is that time runs out. And that notion of going out and about, reaching out to people, suddenly gets compromised. And I, as a new leader, I used to say, my door is open, I'm here for you, I'm here for you. But it has only taken time and many experiences and working with other leaders to realize that part of my responsibility as a person, reaching out to the people inside of all of the different roles that are played in our place called school, our kids, our students, our parents, and our teachers, our board members in our community, is that I actually have to go and I have to create that relationship. It isn't about inviting and waiting for the arrival of, but it's about me reaching out and getting to know and providing those contexts for conversation, getting to know, and just being there and making sure that the symbolic leadership with authentic desire is part of the connection in our community. That is the essence of the relationship building for me. The next one is about empathy and the role that empathy plays for us as leaders. There is sometimes this notion that leaders have arrived. And so we know everything and we are supposed to lead, we're supposed to appear as if we've got the answers, that we have been tried and true to everything. And so we just lean forward. And yet, realizing that we are working with people every single day requires us to stop and, through the lens of empathy, to really reach out to understand them. There are three kinds of empathy. There's emotional, cognitive, and compassionate empathy. And all three of them play a very, very important role in how we as leaders lean forward to make decisions, to solve problems, to be able to connect our community. So reaching out and really letting someone know that they are understood in whatever capacity comes our way. If we've got hard decisions that we have to make, it's remembering that that person needs to know that we have an understanding of the position that they may be in. That could be very positive and be an opportunity that offers advantages. But it can also be in situations that are difficult and require change or require decisions that as principals and leaders that they're not our favorite. They're the really hard, tough decisions. Brene Brown, one of our colleagues, has already talked about her, and many of you may already know about her, but she says kind of her motto is, I am trying to get it right. I am not trying to be right. And that has really been pivotal for me, because that's where I believe empathy comes in. I'm trying to get it right, and people are going to teach me by my ability to understand them rather than anything being about right or wrong. The next one is anticipate. And that has been a huge lesson. I was that early young leader who just jumped right in. I dove in, very exciting, in the moment, let's build it, let's grow it. Everybody's gonna love what I love. Everybody's gonna be equally excited. They all get it. We have the exact same vision. And then I stumbled. I stumbled several times in trying to put forth a new initiative, or to really embrace research and make sure that we were doing the very best for our kids. And so that lesson about what Bambi says and has taught us, not making or committing a suicide, but instead to really truly anticipate what is ahead of us in any specific situation. Right now, in the midst of our COVID crisis, there's never been a time more than now that we really have to put forth the effort to anticipate what's ahead of us. What do we need to be thinking about? Who are we thinking about? How are we thinking about all of the individuals in our community, their reactions, their needs, and how do we make sure that we've got a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C potentially, so that there's an ability for us as leaders to be flexible and agile when we get to any specific moment. So anticipating. The next one has been, especially in these times and as schools continue to rethink themselves, the notion of relearning. And as a leader, being okay with our role in being able to relearn that which we know, the models that we have spent many years holding on to or knuckle gripping, but to be able to show the courage to say, I am a learner. I'm a learner with you. I am a learner in front of you. I am a learner beside you, with your whole community. And taking that courage to be able to think just that little bit differently, maybe, because the people around you are showing you new things. They're opening up your vision to how decisions can be made that actually impact more ground than you would have potentially thought possible. There is a quote by Lucy Calkins. Many of you may know her as really a literacy guru from Columbia University's Teacher College. And I think it's incredibly powerful. And it says, in order to be powerful learners, we need to be off balance, tilted forward, ready to be affected by other people's ideas, ready to be surprised and changed by children. And I would add, by other members of our community. And as leaders, we don't have to know it all. We actually get to just keep learning alongside of our whole community. The next one is about listening. And this one is near and dear to my heart, because I always used to think that I was a listener, a good listener. And through a few very personal leadership experiences, I realized that real listening isn't just sitting and hearing and tilting the ear, but instead it's an engagement process. And it's about asking questions. It's saying, tell me more. Unpack that for me. Help me understand your perspective. Because it really is in that listening that you are honoring another person's viewpoint, another person's set of needs, another person's perspective. And as part of that specific pearl on empathy, that is where it's so powerful as a leader to remember that we've got to put the shoes of the others on our feet for a moment so that we can truly understand. And so listening and asking those questions puts us in the position where we can truly connect and hear and let others know that they've been heard. I once upon a time in that specific situation that I note, I didn't listen. I didn't ask the right questions. I heard. And I realized afterwards that by not digging deeper and by not seeking to understand, I ended up losing a relationship, a professional relationship that was near and dear to me. And so listening has taken on a whole new role. And last but not least, and I think of most important to me, and this truly comes 16 years after 6 schools, a variety of positions, and many, many different opportunities, but it's this notion of story work. That each and every one of us, we are in the midst of making stories. Each of you as a leader in your building, you are in your own personal story as a leader. And each and every one of the people that you meet are part of that episode of your story, or they're characters in your chapter. And we as leaders are also characters in the stories of each and every individual that we are working with, interacting with, and integrating with. And when I have come around that notion, I suddenly realized that that's really powerful. There's some vulnerability in that. And more than ever, I have felt as a leader that I have the responsibility to make a decision about being the character in people's stories that is supportive, that is positive, that helps people build capacity and realize their worth and their value, and help support and lead them to a higher level of engagement or capacity or ability. And so there's almost a role of helping to author a certain chapter of anyone's story. And so being a protagonist rather than an antagonist. How do you honor each individual inside of their stories while also allowing them as characters in yours to help you grow and be the best leader you can be? And so my pearl is really, again, it's a bracelet of little small pieces of wisdom or pearls of wisdom that really, for me, have become the most powerful work that I am dedicated to, and certainly not an expert on. And it's all about the people work and learning that you actually can't read a book, you can't take a course, you can't go get involved in a summer-long seminar on the people work. That comes directly from inside each and every one of us. And we, as learners who lead, are responsible for really being able to grow in this capacity, because that's what we do each and every day. And so my pearl is all about the power that you have in each of you on leading people.
Melissa, in our chat, there's a few people who want us all to stand up and give you a standing ovation. So we're going to do that metaphorically, as we can't see everyone standing up, but we can see from the responses in the chat here that you've touched many hearts and chords, in both emotionally, psychologically, and also in the practical sense. We do have a couple of questions for you, if you're willing. You ready?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. One says, with all the pressing projects that come with leadership responsibility, how do you prioritize? What are some of the strategies that you use to decide what you're going to focus on?
Oh, that's a great question. I think for each of us as leaders, we think there's some kind of equal balance, that everything gets an absolute equal piece of time and energy on our plate. But I have learned that that's not possible, at least for me as a leader. And so being able to create the map a priority map, if you will. It's as simple as sometimes for me, just that piece of paper that has become digital, but that thing that goes where you can see it. What are my number one priorities at any given time? Yes, the tasks need to be completed. Yes, there are fires sometimes that burn in the building. And yes, there are times where you have to choose that specific situation that is calling for you because it needs to be solved in the moment, or there's going to be something bigger. But to be able to come back to stopping and reflecting on, it's the anticipation, goes back to the anticipation. What do I need to be thinking about in terms of that task? And if I need to hit it now, or if I can delay it, what is the outcome of either of those decisions of mine? And being able to do that with each of those core tasks, being able to time out and set, I believe I have learned to write my goals out. So for every project, what are my key objectives? Even if it is as simple as making sure that I am connecting with other people, the role of presence. I write that out. This week, I am going to be in classrooms. This week, I am going to stop by and just check in with people. Making sure that it's in my timetable, but more importantly, it's on my goal list. Because if I've set it as my key objective of any day, week, or sets of week, then I am obliging myself to be able to make the time and the energy to be able to go to it. Some things you can kind of move over and prolong it, and sometimes you can't, but that's that tricky piece of leadership where you only have sometimes a few moments to make that call, and other times you can plan out and follow through.
And I want to add, because I know, Melissa, you and I have had this conversation many times as we've been planning courses and teaching courses and working together in different schools, that in the backdrop is always the notion that which thing is going to have the most impact on student learning. So I know that's always in the thread. It's, the priority, and that requires us to have a very firm grounding, right, in what those things are. If I do this, is it more or less likely to lead to student learning? So we have some really helpful tools in some of the PTC courses that can help you, take a look at kind of the grid of it's important, it's going to have it's something we need to do right now, it's urgent, but it's not going to have a big impact on learning. So that sort of matrix, I know Melissa has worked from many times, and it's always at the centerpiece of prioritizing. Another question, how do you continue to be that person in a person's story when your final decisions do not reaffirm the perspective another person has in the community? There's a second part to that, but that's enough of a deep question.
Yeah, that's probably where the notion of story has come from for me, because as leaders, we are going to confront the reality that there are people who do not want to be led by us. That can you hear me? Because I've got that internet message coming in. Okay. There are going to be people who have very differing opinions. There are going to be challenges with dynamic, because that's human. And there are going to be decisions that have to be made within schools for a variety of reasons. But it always comes back to, in my learning and in my new commitment, my commitment to others, how do you do that with grace, dignity, and integrity? It comes right back to disposition every single time, because I can disagree with you. I can have a real strong belief that you don't share or you've never been exposed to, and so you don't know what you don't know potentially. But it's the way that I honor that, rather than try to be right about it or try to take power over it or try to lead it in a way that moves you out of the equation. And that's really tricky. That's more about realization than, I've got 10 wonderful sets of skills that never fail me with that. But it's that reminder that anytime you have an interaction with anyone, you are the only person you have control of. And so therefore, always pulling back that sense of that escalation to, how do I show grace? How am I showing dignity? And how am I operating from a point of integrity? Because every person comes from their experience and their belief set. It's tricky.
And when that is a repetitive behavior, it starts to become the culture, the way we do things around here. And I know for many of you in your schools, you've achieved that. Hopefully today's many pearls will put you even further on that pathway. Melissa, thank you. As we wrap up today,